Hello, for those watching this in the hindsight of the future, you're watching a Gauntlet Hangouts game. For those who don't know, the Gauntlet is a fine community on the internet where a bunch of cool, like-minded people play, very cool, interesting role-playing games, story games, OSR games, indie games. Check them out at gauntlet-rpg.com, where you'll find like their extensive podcast network, their blogs, and of course Gauntlet Hangouts, where this game was arranged. This game in particular is Spire, The City Must Fall, which is written by Grant Howard and Christopher Taylor, published by Rowan Rook and Deckard. We will just be playing it under the title Spire, A Disease of Language. But before we get into like the game itself, let's meet our players. So as before, name and pronoun, and if you want to, you don't have to, but if you want to, shout out something cool on the internet, whether you're involved with it or not, definitely do so. Let's do this alphabetically. Let's start with yourself there, David.
Hi, yeah, I'm David. I'm based in Sheffield in the UK. I use he, him pronouns. I can't think of anything particularly interesting to add for the minute, so I'll pass it on to the next person.
Up next, we have Diana. Hello.
Hi, I go by Dana Moon online. I use she, her, and I am when this airs, I'll be currently in the Latinx Explosion Twitch RPG, which will be doing a series of Masks New Generation, officially sponsored by Magpie Games, and I'm also on INDG Twitch. Sundays we do the Reclaimers, which is usually indie RPGs, and right now we're finishing up Universalis, and we have something very important coming along very soon, but I can't talk about yet. So.
Yeah, and all those mentioned will be links down at the bottom. And next, we have Jim.
Hey, I am Jim Crocker, and folks who know me from, I go by he, him. Folks who know me from outside the Gauntlet, probably it's because I've been a retailer of role-playing games, and in particular story games and indie games for many, many years. So I own a business called Jim Likes Games, appropriately enough, and I sell games at conventions and shows all up and down the East Coast and through the Midwest, along with the help from the friendly folks at Indie Press Revolution. So you can find me online talking about games occasionally on Twitter at Jim Likes Games. And I've got a website, jimlikesgames.com, where I've got a blog. And if there are any of these games we're playing on the Gauntlet here that you like, I'd probably sell most of them. And you can certainly stop by and say hello at a convention. I'll be at Dreamation this month, PAX next month, and then a bunch of shows throughout the year.
Fab. Last but not least, we have Stephen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen. I use he, him pronouns. When I'm not playing games, I am the world's first rehabilitation archaeologist. So if that sounds like something cool that is slightly confusing, then feel free to look that up because it's a neat concept. So I'll leave it at that.
That actually sounds really cool, and I'm intrigued. But unfortunately, rather than ask you more about it, instead I'm going to play something that's also cool and maybe somewhat slightly confusing. No, it's fine. No, I'm sure Spire can. So we're playing Spire. Before I start digging this hole deeper, so we're playing Spire. As mentioned, it is a game that came out last year. It is basically what they call a fantasy punk city about drow revolutionaries trying to take down an oppressive regime in this weird city of cults and religion and oppression. So that's kind of like the main thrust of Spire. The players are they're all revolutionaries. They're part of this ministry of our hidden mistress who is working to take down the aelfir, or the high elves, who have basically conquered Spire and have forced the drow down to slavery, to poverty, some drow can make it work, but in this system, aelfir always rule above, and it is the job of our ministry to take them down. So that's kind of the content of it, of the game. The aim is, of course, to kind of like explore the story of revolutions and philosophy, and how much does it take to to bring about revolution? What's kind of like what will you do to free yourself and your loved ones from this regime? And we're going to go into stuff like philosophy and religion, because some of our characters are worship certain gods. And the thing with Spire is there's a lot of gods and there's a lot of worship going on, and it's all about like figuring out how all these systems kind of interlock with each other, and how they abut each other, and how they kind of change and warp into each other. It's not a clean process of like, these people worship this, these people worship that, and they stay in their own lane. No, you all live in one city. You're all packed in there, this big, tall tower of a city. And we're not using a specific frame, but there is a story idea, which I'll elucidate when we get into actual play. Let's go through like character introductions, whatnot. The tone of this, so therefore the tone of this is kind of it's going to trend towards the darker side. Like I've played Spire in lightly before, and that's fine as well. But there's gonna be some like big questions that are gonna be asked. There's gonna be like a lot of like people with agendas, and the fight is never clean, so to speak. So the tone is kind of it's gonna go dark. We're gonna go dark. I'll check in every now and then, see how people are feeling, and make sure that we're all kind of on the same page. But it is kind of go there. Like there's definitely room for melodrama. There's room for like high emotion. Like it's never gonna get too grim dark, even though we do have a character who has a cool ass hyena. But that's the thing. We can definitely trend towards having a cool ass hyena and making him cool rather than making him look, brooding. Well, we'll see. We'll see. But definitely on the spectrum of things, if there's light and gray and dark, we're probably somewhere in the gray to dark area. And yeah, the subject matter of this, as mentioned, is about revolutions and violence and the things you have to do to get freedom. So that's kind of what we're dealing with, and also and I mentioned, even though we're gonna trend dark, there's also a part of Spire that wants to make your characters be cool as heck. So everyone has big moves, their advances that let you do a lot of stuff. Like I mentioned, there's a hyena, which I forgot to ask if the hyena has a name. We'll get to that. But yeah, I would say like Spire is kind of like the balance of having this cool world and then picking at the consequences of being in that world of like, all right, so these people have this sort of power, these people have that sort of power. How does having all those powers kind of abut each other? What kind of friction does that make, and how are you all going to navigate that friction? So that's kind of the thrust of the game. And because there's stuff like that, we also have safety tools. For starters, we have lines and veils. Well, we have safety tools because we try to have a safe and comfortable environment to play with these questions, to do cool things, and make sure everyone's having a good time. That's the primarily. It's kind of like that should be like on the forefront of people's minds. So let's get. We have lines and veils, which basically lines are things that we won't cross, won't show up on screen at all. Veils are things that can happen in the fiction, but it won't show up like explicitly on the screen. We have it in our character keeper here. I'm not gonna shout out on broadcast. Just like everyone, just pay attention to what they are, so that we don't accidentally blunder them. And if we do, we have the X card, which is basically it's kind of like a version of a stop and rewind button, so to speak. If we go straight into a scene where things are, someone is upset, or like someone is like feels uncomfortable, they can throw up X on the screen or on the chat or on the roll20 and then we're gonna roll back the scene. Roll20, roll for a party. Sorry, not that other program. So we can roll back, and I might ask what exactly is being rolled back, but no one gets to question why X card is being played, or if it's played, we're gonna circle back. And also, we have the open table policy. If people need to go for whatever reason, emergencies, or if like it turns out, the day was just too much and you all need a break, it's perfectly fine. You can call it at any time, even if your character is in a life or death situation. You can opt out if you want to out of the session. And no, your character's not going to get killed off. Don't worry, we'll figure something out. It's all about making sure people have a good time. And yeah, I think that's the long and short of admin. Let's get to our characters. So we did character creation, the bulk of character creation off screen, because the folks here have not played Spire before, and character creation is a bit different with Spire compared to others. There is a lot. Because Spire is a big, broad setting, and there got some weird ass classes here. And we have one last thing to do, which is PC bonds. Every character class has a PC bond. If you go up to the start of the character class, it's under bonds. So keep those in mind. But before we get to that, let's introduce our characters first. So we'll go by the order of the character keeper from left to right. So David, tell us about our bound. Tell us about Death's Head, or well, I'll let you pronounce that name so we know how to pronounce that.
Certainly. Yes, so I'm playing the Bound class. This is a sort of high-flying vigilante type who has small gods bound into their equipment, which they can sort of communicate with and use mystical powers through. So the character I'm playing is his name is Aelfir Rue, or Ellie, or Eli. He also goes by the name Death's Head, which is unsurprisingly his vigilante persona. Each drow is has to go through their durance, which is a period of 4 years that they spend in servitude to the high elves, performing certain functions for them. Except Aelfir kind of skipped out on that whole deal. He spent his time, when he would have been serving his durance, hiding in plain sight. He stayed up in one of the Spire high elf districts, where he essentially performed as a street performer. He was a fairly common feature on the streets, and everyone assumed that somebody owned him and was making money off of him, but that wasn't actually the case. So that's Aelfir.
All right. Tell us about actually the one NPC bond you have.
Oh, yes, certainly. Aelfir's NPC bond is with someone, part of the sort of oppressed underclass, essentially. In his case, it's Mama Sang. She's she maintains an orphanage, and the orphanage and the orphans in it is the thing that's most important to her, the thing that she wants to protect under the oppression of the high elves.
All right, it's cool. Can't wait to meet her. All right, so that's Aelfir, Ellie, Eli, Death's Head. I love that. I can't believe we have a superhero here in Spire. Typical. All right. Up next, Diana, tell us. Oh wait, no. Actually, I'm actually Stephen. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong screen. Stephen, tell us about our Vermissian Sage, and also tell us what is a Vermissian Sage. You're muted there.
Yeah, sorry. Thanks for that. So Vermissian Sage is sort of a rebellious keeper of lore. So they essentially protect the lore of the drow and the dark elves. They have this repository that they've kept away from the aelfir. So they're the keeper of history, more or less. So Pyrrhus is the character I'm going to be playing. Pyrrhus did his durance as an occultist, actually, working for one of the great families. If it's okay with you, Diana, I'm going to let you, because we kind of decided earlier that maybe they did their durance under the same family. So I'm going to kind of let you identify which one that was, or we can talk about it together. We haven't talked about it yet, in other words.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So in any case, he did his durance doing primarily research into the occult for this family. We've already established that Pyrrhus has an inclination and a leaning toward sort of demonic knowledge, which I think will come out quite a bit more in play. He speaks and reads Nolic, which is related to it's the language of the Gnolls, who have an established great knowledge of demonic activity and whatnot. So I think he's leaning pretty hard in that direction already, and I think he will become more involved in that as we go along. His bond that he's got so far is with Griselle, who he knows only from the vault. He only sees her there. She's a wizened, ill-kept woman who is a mycologist. So she specializes in mushrooms. And Griselle is involved in developing edible strains of mushrooms. So she's involved in ensuring the Spire's food supply on the R&D level.
All right, fab. Nice. We have like a librarian interested in demonology. That's gonna be interesting. Speaking of Dara's character, why don't you tell us about our idol?
Yes, so my character is Ishel. She goes by she, her, and during her durance, she was a pet to one of the high elves, and yeah, in the same family as Pyrrhus's. She When she was in service to them for the 4 years, she acted very much as if she was one of them, whenever she was around other drow, and pretty much kept up that act up until she finally left. Um, she mostly enjoyed her time as a pet, but there were aspects of it that was not enjoyable and had really solidified that this all needed to change, and solidified a deep anger she has, but she doesn't um, share to many people. And yeah, so because of all the skills that she had honed as a pet, she managed to become an idol, and she's really a performance artist. She does a little bit of everything between, like, spoken word to singing arias to doing, like, kind of like mini one-act plays, and she does this through a mix of instruments, masks, performance masks, and, um, what's the word? Costumery. And she tends to inspire or invoke feelings of, depending on her mood when she performs, of either high ecstasy or high or very low lows of sadness. Um, and usually when she's around people as the idol, she kind of performs the same way as like, oh, well, you're all beneath me. You should just become the model drow that I am and see what you can be with it, basically. She does have a fan club with there's three main heads of the fan club, and that's Ala, Idel, and Anais. And they were the ones that understood her art from the beginning. They were like the hipsters. It's like I loved her before she was cool, kind of thing. And they've been to practically every performance that they can afford, which is sometimes a lot, sometimes not. And the next performance she's supposed to have is supposed to be an aria that might instill some fun times for people.
Yeah, it does say that. Yeah, you. Oh wow, you have a move that you can just create a party. That's amazing. So, and I don't want to say that. Well, no, I'd say so works for art. And can wait to see what she goes to. And last but not least, Jim, tell us about. We alluded to this. Our hyena-owning carrion priest.
All right, so I'm going to be playing Jazara, who is, as we said, a hyena-owning carrion priest. in my conception of this, like they take a hyena when it's a puppy and they pair it with a drow who's just a teenager, so that they can try and get the hyena to imprint on them. And like you go through a thing where like if it mauls you, well, didn't work out, they give you a different job. But if the dog takes to you, then you can become a hunter. And kind of one of the cool things about being a hunter is that you're kind of serving out your period of slavery, but because you're kind of out in the wilderness and doing hunting and stuff like that, it is perhaps less oppressive than the kind of constant attention and scrutiny that you might be under if you're in a, if you're like in a household somewhere or something like that. So she kind of grew up in the kind of on the outskirts, up kind of towards the top of the spires, hunting beasts and stuff like that. And a lot of it is like kind of almost like these elves that are like dilettantes and want to go on like monster hunts. I do the hard work of finding out where it is, harrowing it for a while, weakening it so that when the drow comes along, it can shoot the arrow that kills it after I've risked my life for, several hours, either running it to exhaustion or wearing it down and stuff like that. And after 4 years of that, I kind of came to appreciate the whole cycle of life and all that, and kind of found myself in communion with Charnel, who is a drow deity that kind of represents red in tooth and claw in the circle of life, and but not in a like Disney sing-songy circle of life kind of way, but in a we die and things eat our flesh, and that's where more life comes from, and kind of the maybe like kind of heretical view, to, at least as far as the elves are concerned, that by doing something like taking our body after our soul has passed out of it and like putting it in a mausoleum or burying it in a box or something like that, we're actually taking it out of the cycle and doing something terribly unnatural. And so the priests of Charnel are all about trying to convince people, hey, when you die, maybe just lay your body out up in the, up at the top of the of the spire, and just let the dogs and birds eat it, because that returns it back to the world. And eventually your ancestors will eat those dogs and birds, and it's all, it all is like a great cycle. And so she is, she's very dedicated to this. It's kind of a thing that came to her as she was a hunter. And kind of my status in the community is as a representative of Charnel, of this drow deity. So as a result, I've got some street level contacts with various worshippers of Charnel. And my instructions as a character were to say what's weird about each of them. So I know 3 of them, and there's just something strange about each of them, because the worship of Charnel is kind of a strange thing. It doesn't, it doesn't comport with like the, the prissiness and, sterility of elven society proper. So the 3 worshippers of Charnel that I am friends with are Zarin. And what's weird about him is that he's a piss drinker. He takes the whole recycling thing like to an extreme that even worshippers of Charnel find eccentric. But other like he just like that's a thing that he has decided Charnel wants him to do, and so he does that. Misery does scrimshaw from discarded bones. So she like carves little sculptures into like discarded, like she'll find a little like a thigh bone from a bird and she'll carve little sculptures into it and stuff like this and everything. You know, those parts that just kind of get bleached in the sun and just sort of stay out there, you know, little things into the skulls of, you know, like little mammals and stuff like this. And so that's her kind of thing that she does. And finally, there's Brigand, and they are, as far as we can tell, utterly androgynous. It's impossible to tell whether they're a man or a woman, and they go by they, and they don't, and like they kind of have these features that are place them in a like almost uncanny interstitial space there and they collect ancient drow eggshells, which is just kind of a strange thing. It's a weird habit.
Yeah, like for those who don't know, in this setting, drow I don't know much about drow, only from this setting, but drow are hatched in this.
Drow are hatched from eggs in this setting, and they collect ancient what they purport to have a large collection of eggshells that ancient drow were hatched from.
I'm gonna contrive it so we get to meet them and we get to see these eggs, and well, I don't know. I want to contrive a way for everyone to meet all these people, but
yeah. And my hyena's name is Duskgrin.
Ooh, Duskgrin. All right. I'm sure he'll be lovely to everyone in this group, in this cell. All right. So those are all cool characters. So everyone has like a good idea of everyone's characters. Let's do PC bonds. We're gonna roll back to the start of the character keeper and go back to Elifet. What's your PC bond?
Sorry, just fiddling about with the mute button there. Yes, so my bond is I rescued one of the other PCs from a dangerous situation. Described the situation they found themselves in. I think potentially this could be anyone. It's not crying out more. No one seems more likely to it. I think maybe Jazara seems like the most likely to be able to handle herself, but also seems like the most likely to be in a particularly dangerous situation. So
Anyone have any suggestions?
Yeah, like a fan riot that you saved the artist from seems like.
Yeah.
Like a bodyguard type situation seems like that just cries out to me for that.
Actually, yeah, I like that, if that's okay. I think maybe Ishel was at a giving a concert or something, and yeah, like a riot broke out, or the fans grew unruly, and Death's Head descended from the sky at the end of his rope, as he is wont to do. Sort of came down, grabbed her, lifted her back up into the heights again, and sort of got her out of the situation.
And the funny thing is the fans thought it was part of the performance.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Like even my fan club heads, they're still arguing about that. But yeah, it got a little too overwhelming. I was too into my performance to realize I was in more danger than I'm used to being in.
Cool. Yeah, I like that.
All right, so that's the bounds bond. Up next, Ferris. What's your PC bond?
Okay, his is, you have a bond with another PC. You know a secret about them. Say who it is, what the secret is, and whether they know you know or not. So for this one, what immediately popped into my head after the backgrounds, and Jim, let me know if you're okay with this. What immediately popped into my head after the backgrounds was that at some point he's seen Jazara's back, and I think Jazara maybe was mauled by Dustgrin, and that in some way Jazara's been able to hide that. I don't know if necessarily Fyrus would be, or Fyrus would know the significance of that mauling or not. What do you think, Jim?
I think that's great. That's fantastic. I like that a lot. You know, we may find out that Dustgrin is not the same hyena that they put her with originally, or something. But that I mean, certainly that there's some kind of horrific injury that I sustained that I don't talk about.
Okay.
It's totally.
Is it like a secret of the temple that's the bonding experience? Like Fyrus is pretty good at finding out information, but like, is that a mystery religion kind of thing?
I don't think the elves want it out there in the world. That what they do is throw a 14-year-old in with an animal that might maul them to death, just to see if they get along.
Okay. Well, let's say at the beginning, at least, that Fyrus doesn't know what the significance of those wounds are. Then.
Yeah, I'm totally cool on that. Yeah, that's great.
All right. Up next, Excel. What's your PC bond?
It's supposed to be bond with another PC who I know has feelings for me, even if they won't admit it, and describe the moment when I knew for definite. I feel like the most easiest would be Fyrus, because we might have because we've known each other for 4 years, if that's okay, or I don't know, because I don't know if Jazara and Ixchel would have necessarily have come across each other that often. But
I think we can make an interesting dynamic around that with her being probably much more attractive than she or than he is. And definitely more charismatic.
All right. So when when did you know for definite?
It's a good question, because I think Ixchel's used to it, but because I'm presuming it's more deeper than just the surface level.
Yeah, I think from Fyrus's point of view, it would be most interesting if he'd been carrying the torch ever since he first saw her.
Mm. I think it might have been maybe shortly after being rescued by aelfir. Maybe Fyrus reached out to her.
Okay.
And was like, "Are you okay?" And she's not used to someone from the old life to reach out, and I was like, "Oh, well, that's important. Holy crap!" kind of thing.
Was it more noticeable because everyone else was kind of like, "Oh, that was a cool act," but it was Fyrus who kind of saw that you were in danger?
Yeah.
Oh, that's sweet.
Cool. I like that. That's good.
All right. Last but not least, Jazara, what's your PC bond?
Oh, my PC bond. My PC bond is you have a bond with another PC who you have helped deal with a death, Batman, either by guiding them through the grieving process or disposing of the body or bodies. Say who it was and who died. Who died, Batman?
Was it Maria?
That's a good question. I mean, I think either side of that could work, very much so. I can see aelfir having lost someone. I can also see him as being the person who needs the odd body got rid of. So it's it depends which one you're more interested in looking at, really, I think.
Oh, I'm way more interested in I'm much less interested in being someone who dumps bodies for you than I am someone who provided a completely different perspective on how to think about someone's death.
That's fair. Yeah, I was thinking that's probably a more interesting one too. So I think it will be. Well, I mean, I was going to say I think it will be a family member, but it's more likely to be family members. Probably all of them. I think that I think that maybe. I think actually, that would make sense. So I think that maybe Eliphet's parents had been involved in the ministry before, and his family was dissolved for political reasons. They thought they'd got him as well, but they didn't, and that's also why he wasn't he wasn't missed for his durance, because they assumed he was dead.
Oh man, and but that's also a thing where if there's some kind of like ceremony that we have, and I make it seem that there are 5 bodies being, carried off to be eaten by the birds. Really, there are only 4.
Yeah, that's cool.
I could like helping you fake your death is a thing that would be.
Yeah, that works nicely.
That ties into that too. Is that cool? Is that
yeah?
too?
No, that's brilliant. No, that's perfect. Yeah.
All right. Excellent. So does that mean that like you gave me permission to bury them charnel style?
Yes, I think he will have done. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And were you strong enough to be able to kind of witness the first dog come along and start to pick at their flesh, and the first kind of corvid to land and start to pluck at one of their eyes? Or was it not a thing that you could watch and you just trusted and you left me there to see to it?
The first one, yes, but that's it. I think that was all he could take.
All right. Super cool.
I can't believe we got a tragic backstory out of our Batman. See, when the picture you put in the character where I was pegging him more as the Dick Grayson, then I remembered, his parents also died.
Yeah, they fell off the trapeze, and I helped them.
You help take care of the bodies.
I must admit, yeah, actually, I hadn't quite realized I have literally just made, yeah. Oh well. These things happen.
There's nothing wrong with that.
That's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Dick Grayson is awesome. All right, so yeah, we got our bonds. I know this is a bit short, but I'd say just to like get out of character creation, get into. We'll take another break. I'd say maybe like 4 minutes, just to like refresh. And won't be long because we're close to a lot of time. But I do just want to get a scene, see what everyone's doing, and I'll lay out what you're gonna experience in the next couple of sessions. Cool. So, all right, 4 minutes. All right. It's like everyone's back. Okay, so to kind of set the scene, Spire, it's a weird city full of a lot of things, Nominally, it's posited to be a drow city taken over by the aelfir in their ancient war, but since then it's become kind of a hub for everything. You have rich drow and poor drow, well, as rich as drow can be. You have the aelfir and their decadence up on top. You have a proliferation of cults left, right, and center. You have the gnolls from down south who practice demonology. You've got these humans who practice science. You have all these myriad gods and cults, people who worship, ants, people who worship guns. It's a confluence of weird stuff. You have the Vermisian, where it's an interdimensional subway. You have the Heart, which is a wound in reality, down at the bottom of Spire. You got like weird ideas, like whether Spire it was an ancient creature that ossified, or it's a tuning fork for the sounds of reality. Lots of different things. So in this confluence, fads come and go, new devices, new methods come out, and the most recent new device that's come and grip Spire is what people are calling dream dealing, or dream trafficking, or just selling dreams. And this is in the metaphorical sense of, you work for me, you get, pension and whatnot. No, these are literal dreams. Like they come in tinctures and people drink them, and when they go to sleep, they get what they're advertised for. So you get then obviously you get different kinds of dreams. You get the bespoke stuff, like, I want a dream that I'm having this nice vacation out here with, with a harem or two. That's an expensive dream. Or I just want, a nice sleep. That's a cheap dream. Or I want this horrific nightmare that's gonna keep me awake. That's a poison, And that's the sort of dream people get. And you get some of the big knockoff cheap brand dreams, like comfort, or respect, or something like that. But there's a dream that's proven virulent, and people were like, there are rumors about it, especially when the city guard went down to the slums of Derelictus and basically walled off an entire neighborhood to keep this dream out. But there are whispers that it's leaked out and it's reaching from the bottom of the city up to the top. And this dream is called Revolution. Now, your cell, and the ministry has sent you out, and I'm going to tell you where you're going to be out, but your main mission is basically to find the source of this dream called Revolution. And they've left it up to the four of you to decide whether this dream was created to subvert or help the ministry. And you'll decide if whoever made this, if it's being controlled even, or if it's just it's a plague, or it's a purifying force. So that's kind of like your main mission. And I'm gonna hard frame where you are. And this mission starts where we're down in the district called Red Row. If you go to the page, there's a map of Spire, or kind of a map of Spire on the PDF. It's right after contents, and you'll see Red Row is in the Undercity. It's the crime section of Spire. It's kind of like it is a slum. So Derelictus is the slums of the slums. Red Row is kind of like the slums put on a respectable face. This is where the crime factions proliferate. This is kind of like, not to keep using Batman, but this is kind of like the Gotham City of Spire. This is where it's obvious that people are crawling over each other to survive. This is where people like the Gutterkin live. This is where demonologists hobnob with humans. This is kind of like, if up top there's sheens of propriety and whatnot, oh no, Silver Quarter, that's where people have fun. Ivory Row, that's where the rich people go. Pilgrim's Walk, that's where the gods are. But yeah, this is exactly Crime Alley. Red Row is where people who think, who want to subvert the system or want to work around the system, that's where they are. And you're here in Red Row in a place called Threadneedle Square to talk to basically the biggest drug dealers in all of Spire, the biggest drow drug dealers in all of Spire. Before we meet the sisters, I kind of want to see where y'all are at. And I want to like let's paint the scene a bit. Threadneedle Square is basically a marketplace. You know, it's rows upon rows of desperate burnout, hustling travelers for change. You know, cramped and noxious workshops, watchful guards, and it is kind of like it's a marketplace, so to speak. It's a Threadneedle Square, and I want to know from each of you, like, what are signs that security is being tightened up here by the city guard, as if like in response to the plague of revolution. And feel free to kind of like describe your characters moving in this space, because where you're meeting the sisters is at like on a penthouse on a warehouse on top of a warehouse. But yeah, I'll start through the order of the character keeper, unless don't have a detail yet, Elifet, but we'll start from there.
Sure thing. So, Elifet is currently in the guise of Death's Head. So he's wearing sort of tight, figure-hugging clothing. His mask is big and wide and flared out, so it has sort of wings off to the side of it and a skull over the face. He is doing the superhero crouch on the edge of a building overlooking Threadneedle Square, sizing up the warehouse that they're supposed to meet the sisters at. As he does so, he sees a couple of guardsmen accosting a sort of disheveled-looking person. They get into turf out his pockets. They take a couple of vials of drugs off of him. The man offers a handful of coin as a bribe to the watch officers, and they don't accept it. They take it, but just by matter of confiscating. But they also take the drugs and beat him to the ground.
All right, well, that definitely paints a scene there. Ferris, where are you, and what do you see shows like things are heightened security-wise in Threadneedle Square?
So I think the main thing he picks up on is that you see all these drow scurrying around the square, but they're moving faster than normal, and all of them seem to have their heads down. They're not trying to draw attention to themselves. They have cloaks or hats or robes pulled low over their faces so as to avoid identification, and that's because there is a checkpoint at the entrances to the square where guards are actually checking the papers of any drow that enter the area. So Ferris is essentially trying to skirt around the edges of the square so as not to have to go through one of these checkpoints.
All right. God, Threadneedle Square sucks. Excel, where are you and what do you see?
Ishel, by the way.
Ishel, sorry. Ishel.
Ishel is, even though she wears a mask, performance mask, a lot of the times when she's performing that many people would recognize her immediately by her face, she is still rather pretty, and that can sometimes get into trouble. So she's wearing what she considers like low end cloak, but it still is very fine material and it's still a little bit like, oh god, words today. Sorry. Ostentatious, like everything. To her, it's something that she could wear that can get dirty, but to everyone else, it's like, oh, this is someone that shouldn't be here technically. But she's covering her face and keeping herself mostly well put together. And she's not afraid here per se, because she believes that like any aelfir, we can be wherever we're supposed to be. And as an idol, as a celebrity, it's like I can be wherever I need to be. And if I need to be here, this is where I have to be. So she has that kind of air, but not trying to show off who she really is. And but her hand is always near her concealed dagger, just in case. And the way she notices, it's not her first time being at Red Row. She's been there for other reasons. In which the way she notices that all the other people who are slumming it, usually when they come into Red Roll, they're a little bit like, oh, there's scary people around. But because of the heightened sense of security, it's like, oh, I don't have to worry. Kind of like this is our domain. We don't have to worry about these because they're being taken care of as we speak. So she notices some of the other like either drows that believe they're better than others doing that, or other aelfirs that are slumming it right now to check out the stuff that's going on in Red Row. And they obviously are not afraid of any of the, like, they just nod at the guards and everything. They're not afraid or like trying to scurry away. And so she's pretty much doing the same thing.
All right. And finally, Chisara, where are you and what do you see?
Wow. The way that we know that security is up and that there is something going on is that there are no prostitutes out today. Like the sex workers all know to stay off the street. That like security is tight. There's a bunch of people that probably have arrest quotas and stuff like this, and they're just staying inside. Normally, you come down here, you can get whatever you want from whoever you want, but kind of only the most foolhardy and desperate of any of the sex workers are out today. And so there's a kind of a noticeable lack of not just them, but of people that would come down to be their customers and stuff like that. And everything is certainly more tense as a result of that. And I think Jazara is walking around fairly openly. It's kind of tough to hide when I've got that, when I have a hyena that in my head is the size of like a, it's a gigantic hyena. It's like the size of like a mastiff or something like that. That whatever that I have that nominally I have a choke chain that I hold on to, but really it can do what it wants. So I think Jazara has that thing going on where there are like 2 or 3 little clusters of guards that are kind of around her at all times, like just continually doing the mental calculus, is this worth it? Like is the possibility that I might die today if I, try to like pin something on this person worth it to me? And the answer they keep coming up with, at least as long as I am, not doing anything overtly hostile or making shit or giving them any crap, that answer is no, it's not worth it. But like, I think the atmosphere around her is incredibly tense. Because like she's someone walking around that has a license, a license to carry a firearm. And there's a bunch of cops around. And so it's like, I she's there, she's walking around, she's doing whatever needs to get done, but like very much, and hopefully the scrutiny that she's under, and she's kind of aware of this, and I suspect we had a conversation about this, is, look, they're going to be paying attention to me and my great big fucking dog. So that gives you the opportunity, while they're all paying attention to me, to maybe go, do something while they're not looking at you so closely.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Go on.
Yeah, so Jim, what identifies a sex worker in this district? Is it something they wear? Is it something they don't wear? Like, what? I just want extra color.
Oh man, that's interesting. You know what they? I wonder if they wear. You know what? They've got the Black Widow symbol, like from a Black Widow spider, like that kind of red hourglass shape.
Okay.
They either have they all have it tattooed somewhere on their body.
All right, fantastic. So,
okay with that, is everyone comfortable with that as a thing? Okay, cool. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so if I got this right, Alphabet is scoping out on the top, and Jazara is kind of drawing a lot of attention. So was that like opening up for like Ishel and Ferris to get to the sisters? Because that's kind of like, because why you're all here is like you kind of, the ministry is kind of pointing you towards the direction of the sisters, or kind of like the biggest drug dealers, at least down here in the on this bottom of Spire, and they certainly have been trying to get into the dream dealing business. Right now, dream dealing is in that wild west where anyone can just can just get in and on it, like, you know. And there's a lot of cheap stuff that have maybe ruined a few minds or so. You know, when you promise, you know, sleepless, you know, a dreamless sleep, and then, you know, you get dreams of varying quality. It's not great for the psyche. But definitely the sisters would be like the epicenter of it. But I think there is more happening to Threadneedle Square than just even with the security tightening up. But for now, yes, the guards are certainly hovering around Chisara and Dustgrin. Elfit, you're up top. What are Isha and Ferris doing? Are you two together, or are you gonna meet up?
I think we'd probably work together since we know each other the best. And Ishtel would use her status to get them both past the checklist. Like, that way they don't have to. That way, Ferris doesn't have to worry about checking papers or anything like that.
Yeah, I think at the front of the warehouse is kind of like this, like fairly like well built drow in like kind of mismatched leather armor, and they've got a. They're kind of standing around and looking, you know, louche and lazy with their hands in their pockets, but you know, you can't see what he has in his pockets, and he does have a big S-Talk sword strapped to his back, and I guess he's at the front of the warehouse, kind of watching as people come and go, and there's certainly a lot of commotion, as you all described, as the guards are for some reason just on edge today. Like, don't know what they're expecting. So you've got past the checklist, but you have to talk to this guy in front of this warehouse. The two of you.
I think Ferris in this relationship, Ferris always walks like kind of 5 feet behind. Is it? I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right. Can you pronounce it for me, Diana?
Ishel.
Ishel, sorry. Ferris always walks about 5 paces behind Ishel, with his head kind of bowed, like he's pretty subservient, I think, to her.
I don't think she quite notices. Like, that's how he acts. Like, because she's kind of used to it to most people. So, but yeah, and I'm just double checking my core abilities real quick. So there's only one guard, correct?
Yeah.
Like, but very on edge.
I think you can tell that he's not as lazy as he looks. Yeah.
Because she's sometimes a little extra, I want to use glamour to be this guard's most appealing person.
All right. Okay, so all right, hold on. All right, so what? Yeah, you can definitely do this. You are. So what's the sort of like? Is there like a makeup, or what do you like put on to like to like turn on the spell? Like, what's the practical component?
The practical component is it's using a cocktail. I'm just reading to make sure I understand this correctly. It's a very like the practical component is a very specific type of lipstick that has some magical properties. It's something that she uses kind of sparingly, and with that in a mix of like her humming in a certain way, like causes the glamour to appear. And it's like a shimmer. For most people who don't notice it, it's like they blink and it's like, oh, I thought they looked somewhere else, like something else. People who do know her, it's a visible like shimmer throughout her body. And but if she's not enacting on them, she looks just normal. But to her target, they look exactly like their ideal person, man or woman. It doesn't matter. Whatever their ideal is.
Okay, so you see this Ferris. Ishel kind of transmogrifies in front of you, and I think the other two will see this as well. I think you're all kind of keeping watch as the two go into this place. Ishel kind of shimmers and turns into like this, like you turn into like a male drow. The guard is also a drow, as tall as the as tall you're as tall as a guard, but you're kind of you look lankier, and which I think fits weirdly with whatever you're wearing. Or I think the dress kind of like changes as well to look like him. You look, even though you're lanky, you're still kind of well built. You're like it's like an MMA type build, and you kind of have like frizzy hair that's kind of cut short. And Ferris, you see this, like you've got some very prominent cheekbones. like you can cut cheese with these cheekbones. They're amazing. And I think the guard's eyes were kind of like going back and forth, like, But when when his eyes fall on you, you can see they dilate a bit, and then suddenly try to wrestle back into like neutral position.
Yeah, and Ishel, like her walk normally is like of a like someone of high class, and it changes more to like someone who would have been a fighter type, so kind of like bigger strides and not and a different kind of cockiness and confidence in what she was doing before. And she goes up to him and is like, I hear you're the person to talk to.
Well, you can talk to me about a lot of things. Depends on what you want to talk about.
I hear there are some prominent sisters abound.
Well, that's easy talk to hear. Sisters, they're all over the place, but wanna access them, well, and look at you. But then his eyes kind of turn to Ferris, who's there. Well, it's not as easy as walking up to me, brother, about just.
Ferris kind of twitches from side to side and looks extremely uncomfortable at the attention.
What are you looking for specifically? Do you just want to talk, or do you want access to anything in particular?
Well, it depends on what kind of access you're asking for. And Ishel like winks, trying to keep the attention on them. Then obviously, because she knows Ferris does not like attention like that.
Okay. All right. So I think this is going to occasion for a roll, and I'm doing this mainly so people can see how rolls work with Spire.
Okay.
So how it works is we're going to create a dice pool of D10s. And you start off with one D10. You always get one for luck. And then you see if you have an appropriate skill for the situation. And you're trying to deceive or compel.
I feel like I'm doing both.
So you get one D10. You only get one D10. We only get one skill. You can use.
One skill. So
yeah.
So
either one.
Yeah,
works.
It's still the same. So okay, so that's 2D10.
Yeah, 2D10, and you see if you have an appropriate domain for the situation. I don't think you do. This is not high society here.
No.
The sisters think they're high society, but no.
Yeah, not this guard.
Yeah. And then you can get another one if you have like a knack or if you're getting an assist. You can't get extra D10 for both.
Yeah, I don't think that my knack will work because this is not high society. I don't think a cult will work, at least with this guard. So
Yeah, no, this guard is pretty down to earth.
yeah.
I would say normally there's difficulty as well, and difficulty depending on the ranking, it goes up from 1 to 3. That takes away a die. But because you put on your glamour, there's no difficulty in here. It'll be easy to compel him to do what you want. So
The glamour, the fact that I'm glamoring doesn't add an extra.
no, it just made it easier because normally there would be the difficulty of 1,
yeah,
but you brought it down to 0.
nice.
So
You mentioned that I can, or that you mentioned that an assist is possible. How's that work?
if you have a appropriate skill or domain. So if you
I've got compel.
Ooh, okay. So what are you doing to assist? Like, what are you adding to this?
Okay, so she's basically trying to seduce him or get in his good graces through being attractive, right?
Yeah, through his ideal attractiveness.
Okay. What can I do?
Well, yeah, you if you have compel, that means you just explain like what you're doing to help.
I know. I'm trying to think of how a grubby little occultist could make her more attractive. You know what? I can't think of a way that I can realistically do that.
All I can think of is like, well, like if you're the one to go in, then I could stay out with him. So like
yeah, if you say like, if you offer to him that you'll stay there.
Yeah. Honestly, it's my friend that needs information from these sisters. I just knew where to come to take him to. I can stay here with you.
All right, so
I'll
that's
vouch for him.
yeah. Okay, so that aid gets you an extra D10, so you now have 3 D10, and we are gonna aim for the highest result. It's not a combination of all 3, but yeah, roll 3 D10.
Yay!
All
10.
right, 10. So that's a critical success. So what's gonna happen is this guy, he's going head over heels, and he's like, well, with an offer like that, I can't see any reason to say no. The two of you seem trustworthy. Yeah, say with me. What's your name? What's your names?
And I say, oh gosh, names. I'll say Bardem.
That's a lovely name, Bardem. And he's ignoring you, Ferris, at this point. His eyes are lost into Bardem, and it's like, go on.
Ferris starts to shuffle through the door or toward the door, and he calls back over his shoulder, Drex, and he gives from behind the guard. He gives the guard a disapproving look that only Ishel can see.
I think the moment your look fades away, he kind of turns and, all right, no, I have to buzz you in, otherwise you're going to be eaten by a bunch of crocodiles. That's that's metaphorical. It's not crocodiles. It's more like, you won't see because you're not in. And he kind of pulls over the horn and goes, "Mom, you got visitors," and he pulls it up and like, yeah, just go in and go on.
I think as the guard's distracted, like Isha will turn to look and see if she can see like Elephant, and like just give like the nod.
Ooh. All right. So before we get to so Elephant, you see the nod. What are you gonna do from your position?
So I think they've obviously got someone inside. So Elephant is going to essentially he'll sort of abseil down the side of the building. He's on his kind of cloak billows up around him as he does, and when he lands, the like the wings sticking out the side of his mask fold in on themselves, covering up the skull. So it just looks like he's wearing a sort of nondescript domino mask, and he will slip into the crowd and vanish. well, blend in with the crowd. I'm going to set it up quite blatantly. I will advertise this, but I've got the one of my core moves is once a session I can appear in any situation if there is any way I could plausibly get there. So I'm going to write myself out of the scene at the moment to turn up at an opportune moment.
The thing is, we're probably, because of time, we probably won't see it until the next session. So
yeah,
I think,
that's cool.
Yeah, I think so. What we kind of ended with Jazara for now. I think it's this is only kind of like the start of it. But Jazara, so you're surrounded by these guards.
Yeah. So
how are you doing?
I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna I'm gonna just move into so this is like a big like a marketplace, right? Kind of going on here. So I am kind of I have, as a priest of Charnel, I have the ability to take the rot out of bad food.
Ooh.
Is a power that I took, and it's a 5-minute ritual. And so I'm going to basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of work my way through the market to wherever like whatever passes for a soup kitchen is set up, where they feed people that are too poor to feed themselves, and like, you know, the merchants give their, you know, like their spoiled fruit that can't sell anymore, their 3-day-old bread and stuff like this. And I'm just going to go there.
All right.
And
I think
I'm going to bring the blessings of Charnel to that place.
Yeah. So that's perfect. I think what happens when you go to the soup kitchen and it's, you know, it's kind of like daytime, so it's kind of busy, but you can tell, the food's not the best. And when you kind of offer the services, at first they're worried because some of the guards are still kind of waiting in the periphery of the soup kitchen, but they're not coming closer. And I think kind of like the grizzled cook, let's name them Tybalt. They're kind of like, when you do this ritual, what does the ritual look like, actually?
So I think first what happens is like, assuming that the soup kitchen is like maybe a, you know, it's got like an awning over the top or something like that, and maybe some tent flaps or something like that where you walk in or whatever. It might even be open air like the rest of it. But basically kind of whatever the threshold is, I just kind of make a little like a double click noise with my tongue, and the hyena just kind of like, and I just drop the chain, and the hyena just like curls up, like kind of sitting there, you know, like with its chin on its front paws, like outside the door to the place. In that way that like sometimes you'll be in, you know, Manhattan and you'll like walk into a coffee shop and somebody's dog is just there like on the sidewalk. But like it sits there and it's going to be well behaved and it's not going to fuck with anybody unless I tell it to, but it's also going to make the guards think twice about, you know, just strolling past it, right? So that kind of gives us something like a little privacy and kind of creates a neutral zone where it's like, okay, as long as my dog is here, I'm not out in the market messing with you. You guys can, whatever, put a patrol to watch the place, but otherwise move on. I'm not here to cause trouble kind of thing. Then when I go in there, and I kind of like, and one of the things that this ability does is bumps my reputation by 2. So like this is a thing people know that Charnel priests can do, I think. And so it's one of the reasons why, despite the fact that we smell bad and we have these big scary dogs with us and stuff like that, we're welcome. Kind of, you know, in that sort of like crazy, you know, eccentric kind of way. So I go in there and they show me to like the worst of the food. And what happens is I walk up there and I just kind of, and so like that I've got that prey hook is like a like one of those martial arts weapons that's like a hook on a chain, right? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of like the chain is wound around my belt and I just kind of reach down and you can see there's like scar tissue crisscrossing all across my fingertips. And I just kind of like tap the tip of my finger onto the point at the end of that hook, and a little drop of blood wells on it, and I kind of hold it out over the food, and I start to chant in something that sounds halfway between throat singing and like hyenas like yipping and yapping. And as I do, the blood, that drop of blood just slowly drops onto the food, and where it hits, like grayness and maybe even a little bit of like the fuzz of the mold, just kind of like a time-lapse camera running in reverse, just sort of ripples out from where my drop of blood hits as I chant over the food. And I have to do this for several minutes. It's not like it's like whoosh, and it's all better. It kind of slowly, the rot sort of recedes as I do that. And at the end of it, I thank Charnel, and I take the piece of food that I'm entitled to for having done this ritual, and the piece of food that my dog is entitled to for my having performed this ritual for them. You know, and I say, like some kind of ritual phrase, you know.
I think when you say
as
that,
you consume this, so you will be consumed.
Yeah, I think,
you know, I like bite into the, you know, whatever, into the ostrich, the, you know, the like ostrich rib I've got, and I walk out and I toss the, you know, the like bloody handful of giblets to the Dustgrin.
I think, well, before you can go, when you turn to the cook, Tybalt, he's an old drow. Like, you know, he's weathered, his hands are calloused. But you didn't notice during your ritual, he was actually weeping at seeing all this food come back to life. And what's going to happen is you're going to, I think, Tybalt kind of almost falls down to his knees and says, you know, blessings upon Charnel, blessings upon Charnel. Thank you so much. You bought a kitchen a week more to survive. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I say, Charnel has no need of your thanks now, but they will accept it when your last breath is drawn.
And he nods profusely. Thank you, and then he gets up on his feet. So like, thank you. Without Charnel will be honored. The revolution shall sing the spire to waking. And he looks at you.
And I kind of cock my head when he says that, and I'm kind of like, and I sort of narrow my eyes at him, like, this is not the time or place for that.
The revolution shall sing the spire to waking.
Yes.
And you see his eyes.
Yes, but it can also do so silently.
You're trying to say this, but it's eyes. They're bloodshot. They're looking at you because it's almost like you confirmed what he dreamt of. That there's a chance to fight back. The revolution shall sing the spire to waking. The revolution shall sing the spire to waking.
So I do that thing where I like if you've ever had a teacher grab you in that way where they like press your cheeks in to like shut your mouth like that, like that. I like whump, like I do that to him, and I just get a finger right in his face, and I say, if you wish to see it happen, stop talking about it and do something about it.
I think he's looking at you, and he's still crying. His eyes are still welling up. But when you do that, I think he just he nods in, but it's a very pained nod. It's like he's trying his best, just like, yes, don't do that. Especially because some of the guards kind of, well, they're moved back from the front because your Dustgrin is there, but Tybalt just nods painfully, and
I kind of do that thing where I like lean in close and I put my cheek right against his so that my ears are like, you know, my mouth is like right up against his ear, and I whisper, all of the dreams of the future that you take from someone else amount to nothing if you imagine the future yourself?
Wow. I think.
I've got a question.
Oh, go on.
How is Tybalt related to the guard?
Oh. Ooh.
I
I think.
love that move.
Oh man. I think I'm gonna answer that in the next session. But that means you can do it again because we're out of time. And I
I
think
was just trying to get it out before you cut the session.
no, don't worry. No, that means you've used it up in this session.
Jot that shit down because I want to know.
Yeah, no. You will know it. It's just that we're straight on time. I think we're gonna end on like one of the. I think we'll end on like when you say that.
I'm perfectly happy with that aphorism being the last thing I get to say. So yeah.
Yeah, but I will answer that question in the next session, and that means your ability hasn't been used up for the next session. It's only used up this session, Ferris. I won't take that away from you.
Yeah,
but
I was trying to get it in there this session.
Yeah, no worries, because honestly, I need a minute to think about that, and we don't have a minute. So I end it here. Thanks very much for my fantastic players. They brought me quite a lot of material to work on, and some really cool characters, and we'll see how they go. I'm gonna stop the broadcast. Say goodbye to YouTube. Goodbye, YouTube.